Welcome to Paper Pills, the podcast where we examine the scientific foundations of daily life. I'm Abbie.
And I'm Carl.
Today, we will finally find out the truth about creatine supplementation. Creatine is a supplement that's gained immense popularity among athletes and fitness enthusiasts, but it's also surrounded by a fair share of myths and misconceptions.
We'll be sifting through this recent research, separating fact from fiction, and giving you the evidence-based lowdown on everything creatine. We'll be looking at a comprehensive review published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition. It's a great resource, so stick around to learn the truth about this often misunderstood supplement.
So, Carl, let's start with the basics. What exactly is creatine?
Creatine is a naturally occurring compound found primarily in our muscles, and to a lesser extent, in the brain. It's actually made in our bodies, specifically in the liver and kidneys, from amino acids, arginine, glycine, and methionine.
So, we produce it ourselves. Does that mean we don't need to supplement?
We do produce it, but we also get it from our diet, mainly from meat and fish. Supplementing is a way to increase the amount of creatine stored in our muscles, which can have some noticeable effects, as we'll discuss later.
Okay, so it's in our muscles. What does it actually do there?
Creatine plays a crucial role in energy production. It helps to replenish ATP, which is the primary energy source for our muscles, especially during short bursts of high-intensity exercise like weightlifting or sprinting.
So, more creatine, more readily available energy for our muscles?
Precisely. Think of it as having a bigger gas tank for those quick, powerful movements.
All right, Carl, let's tackle some of the myths and misconceptions surrounding creatine. One I hear all the time is that creatine causes water retention. What does the research say about that?
It's true that some studies have shown short-term water retention, especially during the initial loading phase. However, this is mostly intracellular, meaning the water is drawn into the muscle cells along with the creatine. This isn't the same as bloating or edema. And importantly, long-term studies show no significant increase in total body water with continued creatine use.
So, initial temporary shift in water, but no long-term water retention issues. Got it. Another concern people have is kidney damage. Is there any truth to that?
This is a big one, and the research is very clear. Creatine supplementation at recommended dosages does not cause kidney damage in healthy individuals. This myth likely stemmed from a misinterpretation of creatinine levels, a marker used to assess kidney function, which can be slightly elevated with creatine use. But this increase doesn't indicate damage. Decades of research and countless studies have shown no adverse effects on kidney health.
So no need to worry about our kidneys. Excellent. Finally, what about the claim that creatine causes hair loss?
Again, more fiction than fact. This idea originates from a single study that found a slight increase in DHT, a hormone linked to hair loss, in young rugby players taking creatine. But this hasn't been replicated in other studies, and the increase was within normal clinical limits. The overall evidence just doesn't support a link between creatine and hair loss.
So we can put those worries to rest. Water retention, kidney problems, hair loss, the science just doesn't back them up. Okay, so we've busted some myths. Now let's talk about why people take creatine in the first place. Performance. Carl, what are the benefits in this area?
Creatine is a powerhouse when it comes to performance enhancement. It primarily works by increasing phosphocreatine stores in your muscles. Phosphocreatine plays a crucial role in regenerating ATP, which is the primary energy source for short-duration, high-intensity activities.
So, things like weightlifting, sprinting, jumping, activities where you need that quick burst of energy.
Exactly. Because creatine helps replenish ATP faster, you can perform more reps, sprint faster, or jump higher. It also helps with muscle growth. By allowing you to train harder, creatine indirectly supports muscle protein synthesis, the process by which your body builds new muscle tissue.
So, more strength, more power, and more muscle growth. What about recovery?
Creatine can help with that too. It can reduce muscle damage and inflammation after intense exercise, meaning you'll be less sore and can get back to training sooner.
Speaking of training, let's talk about the loading phase. Is it necessary?
It's not strictly necessary, but it can speed up the process of saturating your muscles with creatine. The traditional loading phase involves taking around 20 grams of creatine per day for about a week, split into smaller doses. This rapidly increases muscle creatine stores.
And what about the maintenance phase?
After the loading phase, you switch to a lower dose, usually around 5 grams per day, to maintain those elevated creatine levels. This is what we call the maintenance phase. If you skip the loading phase and start with the lower dose, it just takes a little longer, about 4 or 6 weeks to maximize your muscle creatine stores.
So, loading speeds things up, but both methods are ultimately effective. And speaking of dosages, what's the recommended amount?
For the maintenance phase, 5 grams per day is the standard recommendation. Some larger athletes might benefit from slightly higher doses, up to maybe 10 grams. It's always a good idea to start with the lower end and see how you respond.
And it's important to stay hydrated while taking creatine, right?
Absolutely. Drinking plenty of water is essential for creatine uptake and to prevent any potential gastrointestinal discomfort, which some people experience, especially during the loading phase.
So, creatine benefits athletes, but what about specific populations like older adults? Is it safe and effective for them too?
Absolutely. In fact, creatine can be particularly beneficial for older adults. As we age, we naturally lose muscle mass and strength, a condition known as sarcopenia. Creatine, especially when combined with resistance training, has been shown to help combat this decline. It can improve muscle strength, function, and even bone health in older adults.
Why, that's great to hear. What about children and adolescents?
The research on creatine use in children and adolescents is still limited, but the existing evidence suggests that it's likely safe and potentially beneficial, especially in clinical settings. However, more research is needed in this area. It's always best to consult with a pediatrician or sports medicine doctor before giving creatine to children or adolescents.
Good advice. Now, what about women? Are there any specific considerations for female athletes?
Creatine works just as effectively in women as it does in men. It can enhance muscle growth, strength, and performance in female athletes just as it does in their male counterparts. There are some hormonal considerations, particularly during pregnancy, and more researchers does not fully understand the impact of creatine during those times.
So, creatine can be a valuable supplement for a variety of individuals, not just athletes in their prime.
Exactly. It has potential benefits for various populations, from older adults looking to maintain their muscle mass to younger athletes seeking a performance boost. And of course, it's always important to consider individual needs and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized advice.
All right, Carl, let's talk about the different types of creatine you see on the market. It can get a little confusing with all the options out there. Creatine monohydrate, creatine ethyl ester, creatine salts. What's the deal? Is one better than the others?
The simple answer is that creatine monohydrate is the gold standard. It's the most researched, the most proven, and generally the most cost-effective. Almost all the studies we've discussed today used creatine monohydrate.
So, what about these other forms? Are they just marketing hype?
A lot of it comes down to marketing, yes. Companies try to create a new and improved version, but the research just doesn't support their claims. Creatine ethyl ester, for example, was marketed as being more easily absorbed, but studies show it's actually less effective than monohydrate.
What about things like creatine HCl or creatine nitrate?
These are just creatine bound to different molecules like hydrochloric acid or nitrate. While they might be slightly more soluble in water, there's no evidence that they're more effective at increasing muscle creatine levels or improving performance. You might even end up taking in less actual creatine per serving because of the added weight of the other molecule.
So, sticking with creatine monohydrate is usually the best bet?
Exactly. It's been tried and true for decades. It's effective, safe, and affordable. Unless you have a specific reason to try another form, and you've discussed it with a doctor or registered dietitian, monohydrate is the way to go.
So, to wrap things up, it seems like creatine can be a really beneficial supplement for a lot of people, but it's important to separate fact from fiction.
Absolutely. We've busted some of the biggest myths surrounding creatine. It doesn't cause kidney damage, hair loss, or dehydration. It can cause some water retention initially, but this isn't harmful and usually stabilizes over time.
And while it's often associated with bodybuilders, it's not just for them. Creatine can benefit athletes of all kinds, older adults, and even has some promising applications in clinical settings.
Right. And the key takeaway is that creatine monohydrate is the most researched and effective form. Don't get caught up in the marketing hype around other, more expensive forms.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Paper Pills. We hope you found this information helpful.
If you have any questions about creatine, or if there's a supplement or health topic you'd like us to cover in a future episode, be sure to let us know. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and Apple Podcast.